My name is Courtney Colson, a female to male to female detransitioner, and on this channel we try to figure out what the hell is wrong with me. And we've been doing that for 2 years now. This is my 2-year anniversary video. I didn't do one last year because I just was going through so much stuff, and the drama never stopped, really. It just kept going. And, well, at least today is kind of nice. There's nothing catastrophic going on, so, I will record a 2-year anniversary. But I will apologize if there's background noises, because my neighbor has spontaneously decided on a Monday morning, let's do the gardening. And then I'm near the train station there, and also it's really windy, so the window rattles a little bit. I will do my best to get around those sounds. So the first video I ever uploaded, this video will be my 28th. Because I only do one video a month on average, but if my health gets better, maybe I'll be able to do it more often. But my first video is called Detransitioning and Transhuman Dysphoria, and it has over 69,000 views. Nice. And that was uploaded on the 4th of November 2020. And I just detransitioned maybe a couple weeks before that, and this was sort of my coming out, my re-coming out, my de-coming out. And I uploaded this video not expecting it to get that much traction. I just thought, oh, I'll get maybe a few hundred views. I'm mainly making this for my friends and family because I just needed to say to everyone, hey, I know I've gone through all these dramatic life changes, but I'm taking it all back. And I need to tell everyone all at once in a clear, easy to follow, laid out way. And this video ended up being a little over an hour long. And someone left me a comment this morning saying, there was no reason this video had to be this long. First of all, I don't know what response you expected out of that. You can play it on double speed, so that's on you, buddy. But also, I am very complicated. It's taken many videos. I feel like I'm only really scratching the surface of all my issues in these videos. And there's more. After the... Do we want to say the accident? The incident. When a man tried to run me over with his car. So that's definitely pushed me into deeper depths of my psyche. We'll get into that in other videos. But, focusing on the topic at hand, here is the first video. This is a video about detransitioning because I have gone from one extreme to the other overnight without really telling anyone. And I didn't have an opening phrase, a catchphrase. It wasn't, my name is Courtney Colson. It's just, I feel like I need to tell everyone what's going on, and I'm talking kind of quiet. So I've learned to be more of a on-camera presence. I figured I should explain things. I think it was about last week or the week before I went out and bought all these girl clothes, bought a wig. Mama doesn't like the wig, but you know what? This is like my Transformers Prime Megatron look. You got the purple makeup, you got the silver. It's cool. So obviously some things never changed. I'm actually in costume now, not just cosplay couture. So cosplay couture was something my photographer friend Luke and I came up with, where it's fashion inspired by fiction. And, I mean, I do enjoy cosplay, but to me, the challenge is to make that wearable and fit me in a way that... customizing something that works for me as if I were that character. I guess that's the easiest way to explain it. And in my last video, I was Kazuhira Miller from Metal Gear Solid 5, Phantom Pain. So I'm keeping up the Metal Gear theme. I don't know how long I'll keep it up for, but I do have a couple of Ocelot costumes, so hey, we might be able to keep this up for a while. Why do I do this? I don't know. Costumes have always been a part of my life, and I've studied costume. It is just something I don't seem to be able to avoid. I'm also asexual. Nothing seems to have changed that. Aromantic, asexual, so not really interested in any of that at all. And... so, not asexual anymore. That's interesting that in these past 2 years, that's really changed. I've explored my sexuality in some strange ways. Mechanophilia is one thing. I have intimate relations with my car, and it feels good. psychologically, I feel like I'm benefiting in the ways you would from a normal relationship. I mean, in some ways, it's better than a normal relationship because there's no arguments ever. um, but I would say that I'm probably a lesbian. It seems like that's what I think about and what I'm attracted to. And yeah, I guess over these past couple of years, that's something I have struggled with the most, is coming to terms with my sexuality, just being a sexual being in general, having a sex drive, masturbating, all of that, touching myself and getting, well, figuring out, well, what am I into and what kind of response am I getting from certain actions, and well, it's this whole complicated thing. I often joke that I should rename my memoir, which I am working on slowly but surely. Should name my memoir Horny and Confused, the Courtney Colson story, because it is just always, I don't know, does that turn me on? Does that turn me on? I don't know. It's very difficult to just suddenly at the age of 30 find yourself as a sexual being and try and navigate that world. I mean, never dated anyone, never even tried. I went on Tinder. That's a freaking joke. That's just disgusting. No thank you. If I meet someone, I meet someone. If not, well, me and Ivy, we got each other, and that's all I really need. But also, yeah, part of me doesn't want to be gay, because after everything else I've gone through, I just feel like, just can't I be normal? Can't I just be the default? Can't I just not be the outsider and have this extra challenge of navigating life as different from everyone else? You know, it's 2022, and still, well, actually probably now more than ever, gays are struggling and being persecuted in some ways because of this whole trans ideology of, you know, women, lesbians, fought for decades, for centuries, to get our own spaces where there are no men, and now men are invading those spaces, and we're called transphobic for not wanting males in our dating apps and in our dating spaces. And yeah, so I've been to a few lesbian date night sort of things, and yeah, there were a few trans women there. I'm just going, well, we ain't into that, buddy. I obviously got a lot of male attention, and
Still do.
I hated it. I am definitely
Yeah,
not
it's not so bad.
into guys. You know, if I had to pick one side or the other, definitely not men. Not into them. They're gross. So that's the other thing too, is I relate to men in a heterosocial way. And you see this in gay people all the time, that gay men tend to socialize more with women. And if you want to be really reductive, you could say, well, yeah, a lot of gay men are more effeminate, and a lot of gay women are butch, they're masculine. And that's true, I have a lot of masculine interests, and I get along so much more easily with men. And I mean, my whole life I always felt, I made friends with men who were either dating or already married to women. And to me, I always got this impression that women, all they do, straight women, they just roll their eyes at whatever us boys are up to, and they're not into anything fun or anything interesting. I don't know how to talk to them. They don't seem to like anything that I like. I mean, every once in a while I do meet geeky women who play video games, who are into comics, anime, all that sort of stuff. And I like them. But they also feel like outsiders amongst most heterosexual women. So, yeah, the default of heterosexual female social hierarchy, I suppose, is so alienating and difficult to navigate. And that's where you have the struggles of autistic women as well. Oh, and I forgot to mention that my autism diagnosis has been revoked. I mentioned autism in this video, and I think I still identify it as autistic at this point. I can't remember. But no, I wasn't born that way. I started developing those symptoms later in life due to food intolerances, and when I went on the carnivore diet, it seemed to go away. And I don't, even after the head trauma and everything I've gone through, none of that has even resembled autism. Well, socially, I don't have any. I feel kind of zoned out. I went to a party for the first time since the accident, just a little gathering at a friend's place for his birthday. And I was doing fine, conversing just fine, eye contact just fine. Towards the end of the night, I did feel more zoned out and withdrawn. Not autism, it's just I'm exhausted. My neighbour's walking past. Thankfully, there's some privacy curtains there, so probably can't see me in makeup and a wig. They have none of my neighbours know. They're obviously going to have to find out eventually. But last night on Instagram, I just went, fuck it. I'm just gonna don't half. All my neighbours were fine with it. I slowly detransitioned amongst them, so I was just letting my hair grow out a little longer and I was dressing more feminine. And no one really said anything until, and I think I mentioned this in the videos, that my neighbours had some friends over and they were all in the backyard or front yard, depending on how you slice that. One of the yards. And we just got to chatting. Because they introduced me as Connor to their friends. I went, well, actually, my real name is... And then I told my whole story, and yeah, people were supportive, and it was great. I miss those neighbors. That was a really nice place. I didn't want to move out. It was that little studio apartment you see there. And yeah, great little neighborhood, great neighbors. Friends with a lot of them. But they just... Well... The housing market in Perth is a mess right now, but the rent went up even more than it already was. I could barely afford that place, and I wasn't working at the time, so I had to move. And I'm living in low-income housing. This one is low-income. Increase the rent as well. It's freaking ridiculous. But I am told that I'll get a lot of money from the guy who ran me over. So, hey, maybe I'll buy a house. I don't have to deal with any of this. Ass anything, whole ass everything. Whole ass everything. I'm gonna change my name, change my profile picture, post a photo of myself in my latest very feminine outfit, and just see how people react, because sooner or later they're gonna have to find out, right? And the feedback's been really good. Most people are just, they're surprised, but they're just going, you know, whatever you want, you do you. And, you know, people saying, oh, you don't have to choose, you could be both, you can be non-binary, but to me, I'm not really into androgyny. I like androgynous fashion, but I personally just don't like that idea of... Well, my problem with non-binary is that it's implying that men must be this, and women must be that. Whereas I think, you know, if you're a man, you want to wear heels and makeup, you can still be a man and do those things. So, yeah, that's where I go. I'm either a man or a woman. I don't like this sort of in-between thing. And, you know, if that works for you, that works for you, but it does not work for me. I did kind of... Yeah, I was kind of neutral when it came to my stance on the whole trans ideology. Now, I don't have any patience for that. You can call me a TERF if you want, because I don't think trans women are women. They don't belong in women's spaces, and it's a horrible, toxic cult that indoctrinates children, that mutilates people who are suffering from unrelated mental illnesses. And even if you have gender dysphoria, it's very, very rare that surgical and hormonal interventions are going to be the answer. You should work on your brain, not your body. It's very much this capitalist, consumerist version of a mental illness. Because if you were just living like our ancestors and you didn't have all these, well, capitalist social constructs of what gender is, you know, obviously every culture around the world defines men and women in arbitrary ways. But the fact that we, in the modern Western particular world, we have heels and makeup and long hair and skirts and all the... Men wore dresses and skirts for most of human history, and there's a lot of cultures where pants are not the default for men, which makes sense because, you know, they have penises. Why would you want to bifurcate, you know, the fabric between your legs? They're not a great idea. But as we see trans women or trans men, as we see transgender people in the modern world, how they present that is purely about aesthetic. How biological men and women dress and act, and then how transgender people kind of overcompensate and really follow those gender stereotypes. Now I can, from this perspective, I can stand back and go, it's all gender stereotypes. Non-binary is where you're just a narcissist who thinks you're better than the rest of your sex because, oh, well, other men are so horrible and disgusting, but I'm not like that. Well, then what? So you think being horrible and sexist and abusive would make you a man? Or, oh, I'm not really a girl because girls like all this prissy, feminine, impractical stuff. And see, I'm more of a tomboy. Yeah, exactly, you're a tomboy. That's the word they should be using. No, I'm non-binary. No non-binary. You're just a tomboy. Doesn't make you better or worse than anyone else. You're still a fucking woman at the end of the day. I'm mad as hell. I'm not going to take it anymore. I used to be... Here I was being polite, but the more I see of the trans ideology, the less sense it makes. The less benefit I can see. I really don't think 95% of people who transition are going to be happier. And so now I'm being open about it. Back then, I think I just wanted to focus on my own issues. And I just want to say, oh, well, it didn't work for me. Maybe it worked for you. No. And I'm especially, you can maybe make an argument that some people benefit from transitioning. Okay, I'll be open to that. No one is non-binary. There's no such thing as non-binary. So I guess that was part of it too. I never really got to figure out my own femininity as an independent adult. It was always what my mum was dictating, or peer pressure, or all those sorts of things. And then I got Balmer Forest virus when I was 21. So that's another thing that, like, when I was hit by the car, had to go live with my mother to recover, a lot of those issues came up again, and now I am an adult woman who has perspective, who has independence, who's able to look back and go, I don't know if my mother actually has anything like narcissistic personality disorder, but she has her issues and she's very controlling. And I was reading a book actually quite recently, which is about relationships between mothers and daughters that are fractured, that are difficult. And it doesn't have anything new to say, really, but the one thing that stood out to me was the advice that your mother comes from a different generation. A generation where being beautiful and feminine and attracting a man was the most important thing in the world. You couldn't really be that independent as a woman in society for a very long time. And you needed a man. You needed to belong to someone. So when you are going against the grain like that, when you are a tomboy, when you are not conservative and traditional, you're always going to butt heads with your mother because she is afraid that you're throwing away your opportunities, that you're jeopardizing your future. And that's still the case today. My mother is still unable to imagine anyone's life being different from her own. And she can't imagine my values being nothing like hers. I'm going to remove these gloves because it's quite sweaty. So I think we have a better relationship now, just in terms of me ignoring everything she says. I just say, yes, Mum. Yep. Good. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. True. Just giving her everything she wants to see and hear, and understanding who I am as a woman separate from her. So back then, I felt pressured. When I detransitioned, I fell back into a lot of those old habits of dressing super feminine. But since the incident, since the hit and run, I mentioned in the previous video that I suddenly felt like I had gender dysphoria, and I was a little concerned about that and wondered where that was going. And then I realized what it was is just I didn't feel right in the clothes that I had been wearing up until that point. just in terms of, and I made a post on Instagram today that colorful frivolity is just not the mood I'm in. So nothing to do with that being masculine or feminine. It's just I feel darker. One of my commenters said, "Oh, punished Courtney, is this the new era?" I went, "Yeah, because it's punished Snake or Venom Snake from Metal Gear Solid Phantom Pain." Oh, other thing I realized is, so I was wearing the wig because I had really short hair back then, and I had dyed it red or purple, I think it was, something like that, because I had all these grey hairs coming through, and I felt like, oh, I need to cover those, so dyed it, and then that particular dye was just so hard to remove. I had been dyeing my hair for years as a teenager, and so I knew what I was doing, but yeah, for some reason it was all along there. But then I really wanted to film this video, so I just went, okay, fuck it, I'll wear the wig. And I don't know, maybe part of me wanted a career as an e-girl, but it's not my thing. But my hair is finally the length I would want it to be. This is an ideal length. Now maybe it needs a little bit of a haircut, but 2 years. Took 2 years from shaved to, I think it's well, if I straighten it's about there, but curly is about there-ish. But how do I feel about my hair? I mean, I love my hair. It's thicker and curlier, and it's amazing since I went off testosterone. And because it is so thick and full and all that, you can't really have it short. I've basically tried every single hairstyle going down as it grew. And my hair really only wants to be one length, which is long. The shorter haircuts were fine, but yeah, I'm happy with my hair the way it is, and it's much less work when it's long. It just does its own thing. It sits there perfectly, neat and balanced, as all things should be. Yeah, I've never been tempted to shave my head again. I didn't, when I was a man, I liked all those short hairstyles. So now that I'm presenting as a woman, it's sort of like, well, no, but then I make myself look like Connor. I look like the man I used to be. So yeah, I have no inclination to have short hair ever again. I get a sequel to my chronic fatigue. I had a little bit of a break, and then there was a comeback. But what I am dealing with now is way worse than what it was before. So I cannot escape chronic fatigue. It just keeps coming back. I mean, this time around, it's probably just the head trauma. I don't think it's chronic fatigue in the usual sense, but who the hell can say? We don't know anything about chronic fatigue. But when I filmed that video, I wasn't working. I was starting to get a little better. But I got a job December of last year and was able to work 6 hours, 5 days a week, right up until July, end of July, when I was hit by the car. And we're nearly at the 3-month mark now. Everyone said I've recovered really fast, and I think my fasting and cold showers and carnivore diet, I think they've all been really helping as well. Reducing inflammation and lots of nutrients and all of that. So I hopefully can go back to work soon, but it's very concerning that I had a period recently, and that period wiped me out. I was not functional, and when the fatigue is that bad, that for about a week all I did was sleep. I didn't really get out of bed. I didn't do anything. I didn't socialize. I would always try and lie out in the sun, get some sun exposure. That'll help. But I've noticed since the accident that if I'm that trapped in my own body, I get these impulses to self-harm. And I haven't really acted upon it. And actually, I do mention one habit I had back then as well, which is the compulsive scratching, and I just dig my nails in. And while I was recovering, I would also grab my broken leg, just keep increasing the grip until it hurt. And it was a weird way of just expelling that anger, that hatred for this body. I mean, over and over again, I am trapped in this body. I work so hard to just do the basic, the bare minimum, and I know I'm capable of so much more. And that rage just overwhelms you sometimes. And where I was at that point, I had just accepted where I was in life. I had just accepted, oh, I'll probably never work. I'll probably never have a future. This is it for me, which is pretty depressing in hindsight. But before the hit and run, I had so much hope. And, I was looking into dating, and I wanted to have kids, and I was enjoying work, and I wanted to do it full time, and I still don't have my driver's license. I still want to go get my driver's license, but a lot of my priorities and values have just changed, and you feel like a different person. You don't know how you feel or what you want. So it's unfortunate that 2 years on, yeah, this video is probably not as optimistic as I would have hoped it was. Detransitioning was one of the best decisions I ever made in my entire life. I will never regret detransitioning. But God, my life has not given me a break since then. You'd think the detransitioning was the main hurdle, and then you just ride off into the sunset happily ever after. No, the sequels get darker and weirder. And that lasted for 18 months, and I think psychologically that did things to me. I would say I felt suicidal, but I did have to honestly consider, in this kind of calm, logical way, well, I'm a burden. I can't do anything. This might get worse. This might just stay the same forever. It's been a year, it's been 18 months. Maybe I should just die. Maybe I should just not be around. That might be better. But I think I just sort of made this calculation that, well, I'm probably going to cause more emotional harm to those around me if I'm dead. Probably. So, there is that. Okay, there's the other thing. I should make it clear I'm not suicidal now at all. I'd only experienced that twice, really. And now I'm at this point where it's just, no, I've been dead for so long. I want to live. If there was some dramatic action I could do to help me be alive for once, to feel good, to function, that would be amazing. But no, I've been the walking dead for, at least a decade. The best way to describe it is that I can't suffer emotionally. I don't know what emotional pain feels like. Never have, probably never will. Doesn't mean that you can't have mental issues. So I can suffer mentally. So that's interesting. Some things that have changed since then. Because when I think, when I started my YouTube channel, I was over all of my issues. But no, I was still going through that process of, I hadn't even had a false pregnancy at this point. I've had several since then. Don't just go cold turkey when you stop taking testosterone and birth control. No, slowly wean off those things. And I thought I was slowly weaning off. No, I think I needed to go even more slowly. But yeah, my mother actually said something useful on the phone recently. She said, that dissociation you experience is because you've always felt that Courtney was weak and feminine and girly and small and, all those things. And I kind of, yeah, that's kind of true. And the dissociation I'm experiencing lately, maybe it's just because I've been playing Metal Gear Solid, but I have this paranoia that in that week that I don't remember that anything could have been done to me, that my face could have been put on someone else, and I'm just an imposter with her memories implanted into my head. How do you know what reality is? Anything could be real as long as you're convinced enough of it. So I've requested to get my medical records just for my own peace of mind to know these are the procedures I underwent and nothing suspicious happened. You are definitely still you. You are not a imposter, duplicate, clone. But it takes over a month for you to get your medical records back from this hospital, which makes me think, so are you writing up convincing fake medical records for me, because I mean it's pretty suspicious. You've got them right there. Why won't you give them to me? You're rewriting them. You're doctoring them. I don't trust you. You know, I know that paranoia is just part of my head trauma. But the whole android thing, where I still felt like a robot and didn't feel connected with my body, I don't have that at all anymore. I feel very human. I have emotions now, so I wasn't able to experience emotional pain at that point. No, emotional analgesia, as I called it. Oh, I have normal emotions now. I haven't cried that much since the hit and run, but when Ivy, my Saab, was stolen, and I didn't know where she was or if I'd ever see her again, I just sat down on that couch over there and I was just sobbing so hard, to the point that your lungs hurt. I didn't know that could happen. So I've definitely run the gamut of the emotional spectrum at this point. There is one, though. I don't know what this is. When I feel very strong empathy, my heart's breaking for someone, which is new for me. There's this, like, these nerves, this feeling, like, down my abdomen, just sort of around above the pelvis, I guess. But it runs down my torso, this tingling feeling. And I don't know what that is. Is that normal? Someone tell me. Being a girl sucks. The way men would treat me, well, actually, men and women. Women can be very judgmental as well. Men just objectify you or belittle you. There's a lot of pressure. You're gay. You're just gay. That's all it was. And I see this on the trans and detrans subreddits too. Kids who are confused and have similar feelings to that, and you're just gay. You're not trans. That I don't want to be objectified by men because I'm not attracted to men, and I don't fit in with women because most women are straight, so straight women are very hard to relate to when you're gay. And yeah, there's all these things that over the course of 2 years after this video, I would figure this stuff out. And that whole thing of being selfless and only thinking about, well, how does my action benefit someone else? I'm still like that. As for butchness, I've been exploring that more lately, and I recently did a cosplay test for my Venom Snake cosplay. I'll put it over here. I had to blur the titties because Instagram has a problem with women's chests. Why? Why is there a difference? Grow up, guys. But yeah, being dressed up in that kind of super masculine kind of way, it's sexy. I'm into it. I definitely like being butch. But when I go out, when I'm going with my mother, I dress the way that I know that she'll expect me to dress, because she's going to criticize me otherwise, and I don't want to deal with that. But before the accident, I would always be feminine, and I understood that there was a social advantage to that. For a long time, I didn't see any advantage to being a woman or being feminine. I rejected all of it because I didn't have positive female role models, and I came to hate what I was. And nowadays, I feel more comfortable going out without makeup. I can dress more butch. I've actually been going through all my clothes and jewelry and tossing out especially a lot of jewelry. I don't think I'm a jewelry person. I've had that forced on me by my mother. She was always giving me stuff, but no, it's not for me. I don't care. I'm very sorry. But again, yeah, that's a social pressure to, you've got to date, you've got to look this way, you've got to do so, and especially pressure coming from my mom. I think it just got to a point where I just snapped and I went, no, I don't want to do any of this shit anymore. I'm so tired of it. I hate everything. It is incredibly difficult to go against tradition, to consciously choose to not conform. And I always thought I was a free-thinking individual, but it's hard, it's draining, and, as I was saying earlier in this video, that it would have been nice if I was straight, if I could just be the default. Because every time an aspect of your identity does not gel with the rest of society, even in a minor way, you feel othered. You feel that you have this extra hurdle to overcome. And it's just tiring. That's all it is. It is a conscious effort in a lot of ways to stand strong and be who you really are. In a way, it's hard to articulate why, but you can understand why a lot of kids with low self-esteem, they will be drawn into these things like transitioning, because they just feel that this is going to make more sense. I'm just going to fit in better because I'm just so bad at being a biological woman or man. So I should say before I transition, the moment that actually set me on this path was I was staying at a friend's house. We were watching X-Men First Class, watching McAvoy and Fassbender. I was just like, yes, cool gender. I want to look like that. Oh yeah, I don't have the chime sound whenever I put an image up, because I know, as someone who tends to just lie in bed with my eyes closed listening to YouTube videos, I know other people are probably doing the same thing. So if you've got the video playing in the background and I mention something, and you'll hear the chime so that you know, oh, if you're curious, here's a relevant image. That's when you look at the screen. Or if you're, working on something on your computer or whatever it is, you can look across at the screen. But my whole relationship to pop culture, it's always been that way, and I would say that I probably have hyperphantasia. I've definitely suffered maladaptive daydreaming, where hyperphantasia is just a really intense imagination. I mean, I've had dreams where I have a family, I have children that feel real to me, and when it comes to maladaptive daydreaming, that's where you're just suddenly hit with all these different ideas at once. Really good example, if you've seen Sandman, they recently did an adaptation of it, and there was a guy, he was an author, and he had this muse, and this muse, she would fill him with ideas of inspiration, and he abuses that, and as revenge, Sandman, Morpheus, makes his imagination so overwhelming. He's just hit with a million ideas, and it's like he can't stop. It's just, he's blinded to reality because just, no, there's the ideas, and I've got to write the ideas down. That's what maladaptive daydreaming is like. And I got over maladaptive daydreaming when I detransitioned, but since the head trauma, I had one really bad attack of it. But I have a lot of dreams, I have a lot of nightmares. I have nightmares of there was a guy in a gas mask, not Psychomantis. I mean, it could be Psychomantis. But I turned the lights off, went to bed, lay down, and there was a man all in black with the gas mask standing over me and raped me. I've had numerous dreams or nightmares about sexual assault, about rape, and I wonder if, I don't know, symbolically dream reading, I don't know if you believe in any of that, but yeah, subconsciously maybe it is that I have been repeatedly violated by men in the past year or so. Men invading my home, invading my personal spaces, taking my things, running me over with their car and not stopping to even check if I'm alive. Men repeatedly have hurt me in profound ways. And I mean, thankfully, I've never been raped. I've never had that kind of abuse. But everything else I've gone through feels like a kind of rape. So I guess subconsciously my brain puts those two things together. But when it comes to the extreme imagination, yeah, I respond very strongly to fiction. I always have done. And that's why Metal Gear seems to be the thing that's just helping me get out of bed each day. It wasn't long after that I bought a binder. Thankfully, I got tiny tits. It's funny, I used to wear a binder and now I just get my tits out all the time. I've done nude photo shoots, I don't really care. I'm very comfortable with my body, and that's the thing, is my gender dysphoria, my discomfort with my body was so manufactured by society. I was never someone who had any body image issues. I never had any sort of eating disorders. I never worried if I was fat or any of those things. when I was a kid, the things a lot of teenage girls go through, I wasn't that fussed about my appearance. And to this day, I love my body the way it is, even now that it got some pretty cool scars, actually. They've healed up, they look pretty good, they're pretty badass. There's really nothing about my body. I mean, I wish I was a bit more muscular, because I have lost a little bit of muscle tone and all of that, just from my injuries, and that's, I think, perfectly valid to feel that way, and I have been working out as much as I can. Can't really do pull-ups as much as I used to. I think I can do about 2, maybe 3 in a row now, so I'm regaining that strength. And again, it comes down to strength more than appearance. So my body insecurities really just came on out of nowhere. And, I never hated my feminine body. I never had issues with, I wish my tits were bigger, or had a smaller waist, or bigger ass, or smaller ass, or whatever, depending on what time period you're in. That actually shifted a lot. When I was growing up, white girls still wanted a flat ass. You look, especially in the 80s. The 90s, it was still like that. And then somewhere around the late 2000s, the whole Kardashian thing, everyone wants booty. So, it's so arbitrary. What we value in, especially the female form, it's not consistent over time. Oh yeah, people were looking at me from the park. I talked to my family GP, and he said, I don't really think you're trans. I think you should just give it some time and wait and see how you go. And of course, at the time, like, fuck you, that's bigotry and transphobic, and I was very much I was in the transgender cult. He was right. He was 100% right. He was not right about my chronic fatigue syndrome. He was very dismissive of that. But, I will give him points. He was right about me not being transgender, because I never, ever had any symptoms. I just suddenly had this weird episode that persisted for, months. I think rapid onset gender dysphoria is being more discussed now. It's understood as a real thing. And we're also seeing that a lot of the studies that disprove transition regret and all of that, they're not coming from reliable sources. They're downplaying the consequences of transitioning. It is Orwellian. It truly is. And I've experienced this already with, when I went carnivore, I realized all this vegetarian and vegan propaganda is propaganda. It's made by lobbyists who are able to pay to create the reality, the doublespeak that they wanted. Same thing with the trans ideology. Doublespeak, where you're believing one thing and saying another, or knowing one thing and saying another, however you want to slice it. The doctors who do these surgeries, the transgender people promoting these ideas, they know it doesn't work. They know that there's thousands of detransitioners, hundreds of thousands maybe. But they downplay it. Oh no one regrets transitioning, in very rare cases, and it's because of, feeling socially pressured to detransition. No. It's because I'm a female and I put male hormones in me, and that has ruined me for life. That's why. For about a year or two, I felt great. As a man, I was passing. I was the strongest I'd ever been. I didn't have to worry about all these social pressures and physical pressures of being a woman. I miss bodybuilding, and I would go back to it. I wouldn't be juicing again. I wouldn't take testosterone, but taking tea made me feel good for a little while, because I was basically just taking steroids and bodybuilding, and that's really all I ever wanted to do. The gender thing was just an idea that was a social contagion. It was pushed into my head. As for my voice, I don't hear it as being an issue. I love my voice. I know people still make fun of it and have a go at it. And look, some people are idiots. I was always getting weird symptoms, bloating, priapism. That's uncontrollable boners, by the way, if you're just not aware. And I'm asexual, by the way. So I did not feel aroused. I didn't feel attracted to anyone. Instead, I had these kind of violent, aggressive thoughts. It was like a psychosis, and I told my endocrinologist this, and he's like, weird. Anyway, do you want to try this other testosterone? The fuck? No, this is bad. We should probably be thinking about, like, maybe not putting me on anything right now. But no. That's just how affirmation therapy works, I guess. So the prevism stopped when I stopped taking testosterone, and sometime after that I could have normal lady boners, if you will. And I probably hadn't had any sex drive at that point. I had a just explosion of a sex drive after that, and all I thought about was sex all the time. And it's balanced itself now, although since the hit and run, obviously I haven't really felt the urge to do it. I did it once with Ivy. Felt a lot better after that. A lot of my anxieties and stuff just washed away. I think I have experienced orgasms since then, but it takes a long time to get there. It's frustrating as hell. But no, when you're already just in the mood, and then you get over and done with within an hour, that's wonderful. That's the dream. That's the goal. But yeah, no, back then I wouldn't have. I might have touched myself just to see if that could help with the priapism, but otherwise, no, I don't think I had any sort of sexual urges. I had, these weird, violent impulses towards women when I was high on tea. Don't have that anymore, but definitely have sexual impulses towards women, not of the BDSM nature. And Dr. Opie, Nicole Opie, I'm going to name and shame him, my endocrinologist, who is still operating now. I reported her to the medical authority. I can't remember what they're called, but they said, she didn't do anything wrong. Oh yeah, and I got involved in a lawsuit hoping to sue my endocrinologist. It was a class action lawsuit, and I didn't know who this woman was, and I heard about her through the Detrans subreddit, and I thought, okay, well, yeah, let's give it a go. They couldn't get enough people to sign on to the class action, so she said, we'll do just a lawsuit with you on your own, and we'll take it from there. Turns out she was Catherine Deves, who is a right-wing politician, and she's a lawyer, so she hears what I think of her. I might get sued, I don't know. So I don't have good opinions of her. So she was fired by her law firm, and they said that she had asked for medical records that I'd already signed off and said, yes, I give them permission, but apparently she'd done something wrong there, and I called her, what's going on? I don't know, no, that's a lie. They let me go, but for different reasons. Okay. So I continued on with that law firm. She wasn't representing me, but the law firm was. And then they sent me an invoice for medical documents that they'd already procured. And I went, why am I paying? She told me I would not have to pay a cent for this. And they went, no, that's not true. So I said, well, I'm ending this lawsuit. I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be represented by you. So I had to pay $100 or something for at least I have all these medical records. I do have documents in this computer, which maybe I should back up just in case someone else steals another one of my laptops, because it's just my luck, But yeah, so I didn't get to have my revenge against Dr. Opie, but one day I will. I swear it. I love to serve people. I'm an android. I feel like I'm a companion android, and I live for people. And figuring out a way to manage it, and I think I have. I think I've figured out ways to deal with that productively. I've found out about the service submissive community, so if I ever wanted a partner or a master, someone I could live with. I love the idea of even living with a married couple with kids, helping them raise their kids. That I would love that. That's my dream right there. Again, don't really have emotions, so if I had to do sexual things with my partner, okay, it's just part of the job, A lot of people don't get that, and I'm not surprised. It's a very inhuman perspective to have. That very much sounds like Connor. That's not me at all. And I was this service submissive. I really wanted to belong to someone else and be controlled by them. And that does. I am very, very dominant. I am very much in charge and want control in all situations. And I guess back then, Connor, his personality. Yeah, sometimes the fluid in my ear, it's still built up. It's probably blood, right? Ugh, not a good thought. Is it dried blood? I mean, it's sloshing around, so it's probably not dry. Cool. So I don't have hearing back in this ear quite yet. But getting back to my sex life, I guess it's interesting watching this and seeing how different my values were, or my tastes, or what I was attracted to, and what I found appealing in a relationship. I would not want to be a service submissive now, and I think a lot of that is just a hangover from the relationship I had with my mother, to be honest. So at that point, I'm starting to think, oh well, I could have sexual experiences even if I'm not really into it myself. It's part of being in a relationship, and I want to be in a relationship. So that's really interesting. I'm in this weird middle ground there where I still think I'm asexual and I haven't really had sexual urges yet. But before I reached that point, I had the desire for companionship and intimacy. And I think that's kind of normal in pubertal development, or at least with girls, that they're interested in the romance and that aspect of relationship, and they can be a little afraid of the sexual side of things. So maybe that's what I was going through. I was going through a very, very late stage female puberty. I've ultimately come to realize, no, I'm not transgender. I'm transhuman. I don't feel human, but I feel like a male android. In my mind, I see myself as... Oh, and the whole transhumanist movement. I used to be really big into transhumanism. And to a degree, I do believe that ideally, society should be working towards a situation where we are able to control and consent to the experiences that our bodies go through to a large extent, where we don't have to age if we don't want to, and we don't have to have a lifespan restricted to 1 century. It could be multiple. We can make body modifications. We can have more practical, accessible cybernetic limbs, for example. We do have robotic limbs now that are very expensive, and you look at the hand ones and they're moving so freaking slowly. You're better off just using your foot, honestly. Try typing with your foot; it's going to be faster than this. Jesus. Those sorts of enhancements, I think those are the things we should be working for. But I understand now that we are just naked apes. We are just not that far removed from the jungle. And if you try to deny your essential nature, which is an animal that evolved on Earth in the wild, it leads to all sorts of psychoses and mental illnesses and insomnia and who knows what. And physical illnesses too. A lot of illnesses that we have now, like obesity and diabetes, those are very modern illnesses, and it's because of a very modern lifestyle that we have. So I'm all about ancestral living. I think we have to try to live as our ancestors did as much as possible. Thankfully, we don't have the technology that I ended up looking like Raiden in Metal Gear. Honestly, there were points there that I was so delusional that I would have, in a heartbeat, signed up for that sort of procedure. And, I hear the suffering that post-op detrans people go through. I'm so glad I didn't get any sort of surgery, that I'm able to resume my life as a woman, and I look fine. There, other than a little Adam's apple there, which no one's ever commented on or noticed, apparently. That's it. I'm able to resume life as it was, and that mistake can be forgotten about maybe one day. But the fact that watching this and hearing myself still in that delusional state, I'm sort of waking up. I'm aware that this is an issue, this isn't real, but to still hold on to that idea that, oh, I'm actually an AI, I'm actually a robot on the inside, I don't connect to this body at all. But I know it's right for me to live as a woman because being trans was too dangerous. Okay, well, at least I woken up that much. But it's just so bizarre. And I remember what it was like to think that way. It was a totally different operating system, I suppose you could say. It wasn't me. Those thoughts and feelings and opinions I had were not me. And she looks like me, she sounds like me, she's on the way to being me. She's not Connor anymore. Connor was definitely this very distinct, different man or machine from me.
Some weird shit's happened in the past 5 years. I've got a lot to talk about. See ya, Space Cowboy.
Okay, I was saying see a Space Cowboy back, that's good. It's hard for me to put my brain back 7 years ago when I transitioned, that I was so convinced this is the right thing, this is going to solve all my problems, and then I was totally ignorant of any of the dangers of taking hormones, that it was so pointless, that it was not appropriate treatment for a woman. I didn't know any better back then. I didn't know how to do research properly, maybe, or I just went with what everything the internet was telling me. I really don't know, but all these years later, I can reflect on this and say, I am in a better place. I'm suffering for other reasons. But, life is suffering. That's what the Buddha said, right? But I think that's covered everything. We've gone long enough. See you, Space Cowboy.